But it's over now, and I'm going down alone. Oh no, I've no guarantees. I'll recognize my disease before my time is gone. It is all I found. Can't get the hell off the ground, out from under my feet.
All right, greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and well, one lady that's very, very angry like Tsunade. We are doing the Naruto discussion. It's been a long time coming. It has been quite a while, but this should be very, very interesting as you believe in it. So, I'm your host, Renegade Operative, and I would like to introduce my panel. First, we have Rat.
What a drag. Introducing me first.
Okay.
Seriously?
Okay, Shikamaru. Next, we have Lady Tolkien.
Hi, I am the co-owner of the lovely IAS podcast, and I am very pleased to be here. I've been a huge fan of Naruto since I was a child, and excited to get into part 1 of 2 for Naruto.
She's a nerd, but as we delve into this discussion, yes, this will only be part 1, so past that for Shippuden, we will not be covering that. That will be saved for a later date. Next up, we have Justin. Introduce yourself, good sir.
Without a whole bunch of years of filler before the next actual story arc happens, the introduction is here. Yeah!
And last but not least, we have Connect.
Dattebayo.
As that is his introduction, but
Yes.
I am ready to start off with the first question. So how did you initially discover Naruto? What was it like seeing it for the first time in history, and what hooked you to the premise? Tolkien, you go first.
Oh boy. So, I was initially introduced to Naruto accidentally. I was my siblings and I used to watch Saturday evening cartoons. Like, it was an every Saturday ritual. After dinner, my parents would go down into the den, and me and my younger brother and younger sister would watch Yu-Gi-Oh! And at the time, One Piece, and that was pretty much all we would watch. And then they happened to change the schedule around, and we had Yu-Gi-Oh! And then we had this show, Naruto, and I'm like, what is this? Like, bring us the One Piece that we want to watch next. What is Naruto? But we gave it a shot, started watching it, got really into it, and I mean, what's not to like when you have the first episode full of these kids who are very comedic, and you have a kunai and shuriken getting flung and jutsus getting ripped off, and you're just like, okay, this is awesome. It's a bunch of ninjas. How could you not enjoy this? And from then on, we watched it every week, and I just fell in love with all of the Naruto anime.
Rat, your turn.
It was late 2003. I was just out of high school, and I was a big, dumb anime nerd who hadn't really gone down the route of fan subs. Along comes this group called A1 Subs, who is subbing this anime called Naruto. And the premise was told to me as Dragon Ball Z with ninjas. And both those things are cool on their own, but when they work together, well, some 130 episodes later, I was hooked.
Gonna give my take real quick. I mean, it's just as simple as sitting down and watching Toonami. That's what I did as a kid, and you know, most of these anime discoveries were basically on that syndication. So I forget where I was at the time. I think I was still in like middle school, junior high, and I remember sitting down once and I saw the ad for Naruto on Toonami. A bunch of ninjas fighting, and you know, they have those ads on there where they have the music and it's like really hype and it's like really cool. So I sat down for like an episode, and then I kept watching. I watched 2 episodes, and then I kept watching again after I got home from school. I was like, another episode. And it's that same sort of like timeline that happened to me when I saw DBZ for the first time, where it's like, I can't stop watching this goddamn show. It feels like crack cocaine. It's actually really good. And the premise of ninjas makes it interesting. Of course, it's still like a shonen anime, but it was still one of those things where it's like, this is something to behold, in terms of the characterization, how some of the people just in the show had an infectious attitude. So I really was invested into everything that was going on. And of course, like, it was just top tier anime once I got through and through and through. And that's my history with Naruto, being a high schooler and getting into that shit like clockwork. Next up is Justin.
So I forget the year, but I vividly remember just the scenario. So none of it was actually initially from like the internet or even not even Toonami, first of all, because like this was still in the era when Toonami was airing before the first freaking like, you know, before like the first you know, cancellation of Toonami, before its inevitable revival. But it was a family gathering at at the house, and one of my cousins had actually, it's like they had to have known I had a fucking GameCube, because they brought over Naruto Clash of Ninja 2. And like more of that is definitely saved for the game discussion, like the game question later. But that was really my first introduction to Naruto, because I am like, what's Naruto? Like, because I amazingly, I'd never even fucking heard of Naruto until then. I knew of Dragon Ball, I knew of One Piece, I knew of Bleach even, but not Naruto. So we popped the game in, and he's pretty much done everything at this point. He had all the characters, all the stages. Like, this dude did everything. So I got to see all this crap from the start. I'm like, what is this character? How is he doing this? Why is he all angry? Why is Naruto screaming? Why is he in a red heart? Why are his nails like that? But he's explaining all this stuff to me. Like, what? What is this show? And then what really especially got me was like how he explained Gaara, like with the whole sand thing. I'm like, what is going on in this show? What is any of this? Is actually really fun. This is fun as hell. And then not only do I later get the game for myself, but that's what started getting me to watch the show. And because it was always on like Toonami or something, like hell, even like sometimes like before Adult Swim hit on Cartoon Network, they would just show the episodes there. And I mean, there was like no real timeline events. This was like before binging anime was easy. So if you caught an episode, you caught an episode. So if you didn't know what arc it was in, it's like, well, too bad. Because I think the first fucking arc I got started into of all arcs was tuning exams, like just before the tuning exams. And it's like, oh, I recognize some of these characters, so they're from the game. And then I'm just like, fuck it, why not? I don't know. I knew barely anything of what happened before tuning. I think I may have caught the episode where they were with the bell test, but other than that, I was at the mercy of the Cartoon Network / Toonami schedule for Naruto. But it's a rabbit hole that I went far down, and honestly, even in some way, I still haven't looked back. But most of that definitely has to do with the games. But we'll get into that later. But yeah, how I got into Naruto of all fucking games was Clash of Ninja 2, and just having a whole lot of fucking fun with it. The one time, and here I am now.
Kaneki, what about you? What is your experience with Naruto for the first time?
I assume there was some answers. Actually, did anyone say Toonami
Yeah, I
when they
did.
mentioned the Hobby? Oh, you did? Well, let's just say I was on the same boat as you, Ran. Back when it all started, yes, I believe it was. I want to say it was the year 2006 when they introduced this anime on Toonami. I think I was still like in elementary school, I want to say. No, it had to be middle school when it all started. And the show came on. I'm like, okay, this could be an interesting show because there was nothing on TV on weekends, so I usually watch Toonami back when it was an all day on the Saturday program on Country Network. And I watched this show. I'm like, wait a minute, this show is actually pretty good. So I've been binge watching that shows whenever they show like new episodes for it every week on Toonami. I especially when they show like the ninjas fighting each other, especially when Naruto introduces his own Nine Tails aura to some characters like Haku, for example. I'm like, yo, this anime is sick. And that's I've been loving the anime since.
All right, so we're gonna move on to question number 2. Let's talk about your top 3 favorite battles in Naruto Part 1. List them off and explain what made them so good, story invested, and well animated. And Kaneki, we'll start with you first.
Oh, this is an interesting one. So obviously, when I mentioned Naruto showing off his Nine Tails aura to Haku in that intense battle moment, so far that's my number 3 on the list because it showed the fact that in the moment Naruto actually thought that they killed Sasuke, his friend, the friend that he actually that he liked throughout the entire show. And when he saw that Sasuke wasn't moving or anything, or bleeding to death, this motherfucker decided he had enough. He went on out with the chakra and the emotion. It was unbelievable. Whole new level of emotion. And he punched the shit out of Haku through the mask to the face. My chef's kiss. My second favorite battle would be that's a tough one. Maybe the Naruto versus Sasuke fight in the roof when they actually tried to fight each other, but then got interrupted by Kakashi. I thought they was gonna go all out, which they was planning to go all out and destroy the roof, but Kakashi had to stop them before it gets real bad, and that's when Sasuke became like a rogue ninja that Kakashi was afraid of. And then the number one fight, of course, is, you guessed it, the final battle between Naruto and Sasuke, where no one interrupted them in the final valley. No holds barred, anything goes. They beat the shit out of each other until whoever's the last one standing.
All right, Justin, it is your turn.
Oh, I mean, I'll agree. It's a tough question. I'm not gonna go in any particular order here, but I'm also I'm gonna definitely yoink the Naruto Sasuke fight. Like, again, that it's the one like at that I don't even know what the name of it is, but it's like the river and the mountain range where it's just like 1-on-1 that they gotta keep talking and everything. That is the same one we're thinking about, right?
Is that the Valley of the End?
Oh, the valley. What?
Wait, hold on. Is it the one with the Madara and the first Hokage statue?
Yeah, which fight is
that what-
this?
Is that what it's called? The Valley of the End? Because that's the same one, right?
Yeah, that's the final valley.
That's the Final Valley. Sometimes it's called
okay.
Valley of the End, sometimes it's called Final Valley, but that's where it is.
Yeah, no, same one. Yep, that's the one. Okay, just wanted to get the name proper, but yeah, I'm gonna yoink that answer real quick because that was a pretty goated fight.
It was one of the best fights.
certainly wouldn't be the last one, but we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
That's a part 2 related thing. Oh, my
Oh
god.
yeah, yeah. No, but like that's just one out of several cool battles that would happen at the Valley of the End, and you have your typical anime talking, but again, that fight was fucking brutal though. Definitely, like it's just like that salty run back from the fight on the roof, which also was pretty fucking cool. Oh, I actually really also like the and when they finally freaking caught up to Gaara, like in the fucking late in the tuning exam arc, that when they freaking rode on like it's like running like a freaking kaiju battle with when Gaara had his tailed beast and Naruto with the fucking giant frog. I don't know. I'm just a sucker for giant kaiju battles, but again, like a lot of people have already heard my opinion on some of the bosses from FF16, so it's like no shit. I'm a fan of giant kaiju battles. I am just a real sucker for that kind of shit. And also yoinking another one, mainly just because it was really the first time we saw like the like a preview, like the extent of the kind of stuff Naruto could do with the Nine Tails power. That fight against Haku and Zabuza, that was pretty cool. It reminded me of the time I was spamming Nine-Tailed Naruto and Clash of Ninja 2, actually, because I don't know. I just really love the premise of that character in the game. But again, I love how I keep answering question 7 without answering question 7. Yeah, that was 3. All right, yep, I'm good.
All right, since Nero is here, introduce yourself, good sir. Oh, still muted? Okay, well, we're gonna move on to Tolkien. So Tolkien, 3 favorite battles in Naruto. Go.
Okay, well, as previously stated, it is very hard to limit it to 3 out of 100 and some odd episode series. But as others have already used, the Naruto versus Sasuke at the end, which of course is epic. I think that's going to be at the top of almost everybody's list. I will pick 3 different ones in no particular order. I very much enjoyed the Kakashi versus Zabuza fight in both sections of the Land of Waves. I think it was so nice to see how Kakashi uses the Sharingan, considering he only has the one, and it's not even a pure one if you want to call it that. I enjoyed him copying the same moves Zabuza was doing, freaking him out. I enjoyed seeing just how vicious a rogue shinobi is toward people. Zabuza showed, especially the Genin, just how bad the world is out there apart from the little bubble they live in. And it was so great to see that. And I always enjoy seeing really enormous swords in play with ninjas. And I liked seeing Kakashi use a lot of his wits to summon his ninja hounds in order to track Zabuza there at the end before defeating him. And of course, I think everybody was just awed at him using his very own created and designed jutsu, the lightning blade. I mean, that thing is just badass. I really enjoyed it. Another fight that I really like is pretty much an all-out, no-holds-barred battle between, you had Naruto, Tsunade, Jiraiya, Orochimaru, Shizune, and Kabuto there when they're trying to convince Tsunade to be their next Hokage. And I think I really enjoyed that one because you get to see all 3 of these legendary Sannin that people kept talking about through the series and how great they were. And you finally get to see them all 3 there in this little field, summoning a giant slug, a giant toad, a giant snake, and it's just all out madness. And then you put Shizune and Kabuto and Naruto doing their own little squabble off to the side, and you just get to see some really cool jutsu being used between all of them. And I think another one I think is really good and it has nothing to do with it being all out or really a lot of brawn or lots of jutsu being used, but I appreciate the series having showcased the Tamari versus Shikamaru in the Chunin exams, because it really highlights that you don't have to be the strongest or know the most jutsu to win a battle. It very much showcases that brain can overpower brawn in a lot of situations. And I really appreciate them having a character like Shikamaru who uses smarts and intellect so well compared to so many of the other genin who just go all out physically and with jutsus. And, he definitely uses brain over brawn in that sense. And I really like them showcasing how different he is compared to the other ones.
Rat, what about you? It is your turn.
Oh, I think I am very confident in my choices because I know two of them are probably not going to be on everyone's list. And yeah, a lot of fights are done throughout the first half of Naruto, so I kind of had to limit it to a particular arc, which is naturally one of my favorite arcs, the Chunin exams. So number 3 is Sakura versus Ino, because it starts out as just a straight up boxing match for 5 minutes. And then you start getting into the intense dramatics of Ino and her mind transfer jutsu, because it's not really meant to be a battle technique. It's more of a spying technique. So there's this intensity of, did it hit Sakura? Did it not? This is an all or nothing fight. It does. And then you figure the fight's over, but then in comes Inner Sakura, which used to be this comedic cutaway and is now suddenly this scary monster choking the life out of Ino. And the fact that this fight starts and ends with fisticuffs, never mind the rivalry between them, it's one of my favorite fights, and I constantly keep going back to it just because of just how generally fun it is to see these characters interact for non-Sasuke related reasons. And granted, once the battle for Sasuke is thrown out the window, it's a much better fight. Number 2, I will piggyback off of Tolkien's idea that Shikamaru fights are good because they rely more on strategy rather than, holy fuck, is that a giant summon? It's Shikamaru versus Keen, the Sound Ninja, where it just comes down to positioning and Kin thinking that she's got this fight all figured out. She knows how this shadow possession thing works, and then proceeds to throw out techniques that work against her, as Shikamaru takes this tiny little string to possess her. But even then, how is he going to get it done? He's just going to throw a shuriken at himself. But isn't that going to hurt him? Yes and no. He dodges out of the way. Kin dodges out of the way into the wall, smacks her own head, knocks herself out. It's one of the funniest outcomes because it's one that only Shikamaru really sees coming. And then I thought my number 1 was going to be a bit more predictable because I figured this would be near the top of everyone's list. Rock Lee versus Gaara. Because it is such a fast-ass Dragon Ball Z fight where Rock Lee just keeps increasing speed, dropping weights, powering up. It goes from him barely being able to scratch Gaara to scratching him, but no, wait, that's a shell, to viscerally slashing him, oh god, that's the real body, to Gaara with one of the most brutal takedowns in the show, and Rock Lee getting to demonstrate his greatest techniques, costing him an arm and a leg. It is, in my opinion, one of the greatest Naruto fights of all time, if not one of the greatest anime fights of all time. It's one of the greatest 3 episodes in the show.
All right, I'm gonna do my 3. I'm gonna make it kind of quick, but obviously number one is Naruto versus Sasuke at the Valley of the End. Honorable mention to the rooftop fight as well, because I do believe that was a decent showcase into like how both of them operated. Like Sasuke had to be a little bit more tactical because all these clones are everywhere, and also use a Sharingan. At the end of the fight, you get all the emotions. You get that this situation, he wants to really kill him, kill his best friend, and the part in the water where he's like looking at them, saying that, I gotta take this seriously or whatever. He's looking at Sasuke, I gotta take this seriously. That was a big symbolism, big backstory, a lot of emotions going into it, and then you see their full power start to come out. When I saw that scene, and it's very well animated too within this fight. I'm talking like fast-paced, furious, brutal too. When you see that scene where he comes out of the water and he has the tailed beast and everything's like erupting around the Valley of the End, that was a really, really good visual. When you see the fox for the first time in the background, he's like, what is that? What is it? Very good stuff with that fight and its interpretation on everything and how it ended, of course. Next up, I would say, of course, Rock Lee versus Gaara was also pretty good, because you got to see how all of this taijutsu was not really working out too well, but you saw like just a plethora of moves put onto Gaara, and it's like, is the show gonna break? No, it's like that creeping battle of a lot of tension, and especially the ending where it's like he's about to kill him at the end, and then you kind of see just Mike Guy steps in and says, no, you're not killing my student, fuck that, I care about him. And that sort of is a first signifier of Gaara like seeing someone care for someone else before it sort of culminates into Naruto giving him the rest of that lesson. But he says in the end of this fight that, oh, well, caring about people is still pointless or whatever. So it's like, you can see the cracks are sort of starting to show on the characters as well. And the last fight, I would say, is kind of underrated, but I remember liking it a lot, is Rock Lee and Gaara versus Kimimaro. I thought it was cool to see all these weird bone abilities just like shred through the battlefield, and you see them fight, and it's like, one of the cool things about this fight is that if Kimimaro wasn't sick, then I think those two would have just been GG's, rip, it would have been over. Which is a dire situation, but again, it is like, he's fighting against time. That was also cool. Also seeing Rock Lee go into Drunken Fist for the first time, because apparently the water that he was drinking was mistaken. It was sake, and he got super drunk. And if you are a fan of like stuff like Jackie Chan, Drunken Master, then you would probably really like that reference. And the fact that he's like super powerful during that, Kimimaro knows, hey, I gotta get serious against this guy, because while he is a blundering fool while he's drunk, he's kind of kicking my ass. So he kind of goes into curse mark, tries to go against him, and he starts to get the upper hand, and then Gaara comes in. It's really cool, because it's something that you didn't expect to happen. It's like, yeah, he kind of crippled Lee, now he's working together, and it shows his character arc and development and change, which I really, that was cool. That was cool. And I saw Kaneki mention Hinata versus Neji, which is also a nice fight as an honorable mention, really. I like that fight too, to be honest, where it's like, he kind of says, oh, this is pointless, you're worthless, you'll never be anything. And she keeps fighting back, because of course her ninja way is to have confidence. And I really enjoyed that too. And it gets even deeper as we go into Shippuden, but I can't really talk about that, so I have to move to the next question. I'm pretty sure all the Naruto fans know what I'm talking about when we get to that point, but we got to move on to question number 3. So Orochimaru is the overarching villain within part 1. His need to infiltrate the Leaf Village, cause havoc amongst the lives of others, and his creepy demeanor was legendary. What did you think of him as a main villain for this arc? And Tolkien, you are first.
Oh, this series does a very good job in making you loathe this character. I remember when he first showed up on the screen, I'm just like, ew, what the fuck is that? Like, guy legit is a creeper murdering his own people in this backroom, dirty doctor style dungeon. And I could not wait for somebody to off this man. I was like, please, someone murder this character. I could, like, oh, I hated him so much, but he's done so well, as most villains should be, and I can understand why so many people just adore him as a villain and just appreciated just the pure villainy of this guy, willing to do anything to learn jutsu and to become immortal. And it's just wild, the tricks that he pulled in his battle versus Sarutobi, showing that it isn't him underneath that skin, and that he's learned some new jutsus to help him get to be immortal. And he just has no limits. He's willing to bring up dead people and just break all morality to just get his end goal. And just so easy to hate. And that's just, it's so well done how maniacal and disturbing and villainous he is. He just, anybody could see him, and he's easily recognizable from Naruto, and that he's one, in my opinion, one of the best well done villains in anime.
Rat, what about you?
Orochimaru can really be described to me in only one word: cockroach. He's the villain that never really goes away because this man takes Forever Young to a whole new level. And we can go through the various other shonen anime and the satisfaction that you got when the hero finally defeated the villain in the most epic way possible. But no, when Orochimaru finally does get taken down in Konoha Crush, he doesn't get killed per se. It took the third Hokage dying not to kill him, but rather to just take his arms, make him unable to, at the time, be a threat to anyone ever again. And that is the type of character Orochimaru is. He just is a character that could go on forever if he truly tried.
Yeah, I personally agree with that. Orochimaru has persistence to his name, and one of the things that's going to be mentioned and that I like is that you never really know what he's going to pull, like, because in the beginning of the exams and going into Konoha Crush, I mean, he was impersonating people, and then later on they found like the dead Kazakage, and it's just like, whoa, this stuff is unreal with how far he's going in order to impersonate, infiltrate, and get his way, and grab someone to become his next vessel that's powerful enough, which is later on is revealed to be Sasuke, obviously, so he wants his body. The stuff that he does, even his jutsus are like disgusting. Snakes putting out swords out of their mouths and all this other stuff, and putting curse marks on people. You're just wondering, like, what the hell is this guy's like main objective? And he's just ruining a lot of lives along the way. Having the skin of like a woman, yeah, that's sickening. And seeing his face like halfway peeled off when he's fighting Sasuke, it's just like, what the fuck is this? It's grotesque, it's disgusting, but it keeps you intrigued in a weird sense with how this goes on. So I really liked it a lot with his character arc and his goals and everything. And ending up fighting the Hokage, that was kind of cool too. Although, granted, he lost his arms in the process with that Reaper Death Seal, but still, that was an amazing moment, an amazing fight, and an amazing finish to that arc included. I really enjoyed it. Next up is Justin. What do you think of Orochimaru?
Yikes on a bike, this fucker Orochimaru. Just just from the first look at him, you can just be like, okay, FBI, we're gonna need you on standby over here. We got a creepazoid. He's eyeing Sasuke. He is looking at that hairstyle and being like, oh my god, I'm going to become you. Now then, Sasuke, turn over to the dark side. This is just a Palpatine of fucking Naruto. The more I thought about it as y'all were talking, it's just like literally just give him the fucking decrepit look that Palpatine gets, and it's like literally he is just like, I will turn you over. I'll make you mine. Okay, I did that a little too well. I am so sorry. Oh, God. You can't do Orochimaru without the leg. It's just like that's like his sadly one of his signature looks. I mean, look at some of the screen caps of the fucker. You'll just be like, ugh, okay. Please, FBI, I need an adult. Oh wait, I am an adult. Oh fuck. But much like so many shonen anime villains, I mean, he is hella iconic. He is persistent, even after like losing his fucking arms. Even in the background, he just never stops trying. Is like, as mentioned before, a fucking cockroach. He just doesn't stop. He comes back more than fucking Frieza. Just truly goes to show, and that you just I don't even know what else to say about Orochimaru, because like even people who have never really watched Naruto, I'm sure, know of him at the very least, just because he just keeps coming back again and again. It's just like how Dragon Ball has Frieza. It's like, oh, people know Frieza, people know Cell, but if people know Orochimaru, yes, he's such a domino tipper for so much of what happens across this franchise. Like, if it weren't for that encounter in the forest, who knows how things would have played out differently. If it weren't for the curse mark, who knows how things played out differently. If it weren't for just like so much of what happens in Naruto is because this one scaly, peely, pale as freaking Sheamus from WWE motherfucker really wanted like unlimited power and immortality. So like, more than, I would say, half of all this crazy shit that happened, especially with freaking Sasuke, and just eventually actually leading Sasuke down his super anime brooding arc, like more so than he already usually does. He's so much of what tipped the dominoes for so much of what would be to come in this whole story, like both part 1 and into Shippuden. So like Orochimaru, for as much of a snake as he is, both figuratively and literally, can't say he isn't smart, because no, he sees so much as a fucking chess game, even with him not having his arms for some fucking time. And if y'all have woken up with both your arms asleep because you freaking turned over on your bed and you fell asleep on them and you can't move the damn things, let me tell you, not having your arms sucks.
Kaneki, it is your turn. What do you think of Orochimaru?
Man, y'all have a lot of detailed answers that would describe how this man became, like, not only a villain but the villain of the part 1. I don't know what to say other than the fact that when I found out about this character, or my introduction to this character, is a good old I think it was when they were in the woods, right, for another Chunin training or some shit. And you see Naruto uncle talking, and then all of a sudden you see this weird ninja, like a weird woman. Like, who the fuck are you? I don't remember you in the show. And then it hits me. I'm like, oh shit, something is about to go down. And then later on, when in the woods, when they see someone like When they see Sasuke all alone with that ninja, took off the mask, and then fucking bit him in the neck, I'm like, all right, so this is the villain right here. And let's just say, in the quotes of Freddy Krueger, why won't you die? Has been the main theme since the entirety of the whole series, but I'm going to save that for when part 2 comes out. Because let's just say it is not the end of this motherfucker.
Nero, are you finally back yet?
Well, I'm still on that. I'm still at the subway waiting for the train. I got a couple minutes to spare.
All right, we're on part 3. We're talking about what do you think of the villain Orochimaru?
I honestly think that Orochimaru, for how he's set up, he's a pretty good villain. I mean, he already gave like the Sword Hokage a hard time, and had gave the third Hokage his farewell and all that. And then I like how Orochimaru is manipulating Sasuke and trying to gain Sasuke's power. Well, gain Sasuke's body to achieve immortality, to learn all the jutsus and stuff like that. I feel like that's a really interesting thing that I found out a lot about it.
Okay. And is that it for your answer to this question?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Unless you want me to go into like other stuff.
No, that's it really. I think we could move on to the next one. So, question number 4: what is the most emotional moment or death for you in Naruto Part 1? And I want Rad to go first.
Really? Okay. Okay, because mine's kind of boring. The moment in the Forest of Death where Sakura is forced to cut her own hair to save her hide. And it turns out that it's a symbol of killing her approach to the art of ninja, because it's about beauty and disguises, and your job is especially important. And she's tired of people covering her. She wants to cover them. It's kind of the peak of that character for the most part. She fights her ass off against the Sound Ninja, and it's great, and it's awesome, even if the end result leads to her just biting down on someone's arm and not letting go and getting her head punched in a lot. But at the same time, it felt like peak emotion for a character that is, at the time, so out of her league compared to her peers, now having to protect said peers on her own. But that moment of all of part 1 is the one that really sticks out to me. That image of the pan up to her with short hair and that look on her face, it's burned into my memory. And that's really all I have to say.
Tolkien, what about you?
Okay, well, I technically have 2, but one's kind of just a mention because didn't full on make me cry like my second one, but it got me kind of close. Was the moment when Guy has to interfere in Lee and Gaara's fight, and he's talking about Lee, and everybody does this gasp when they see Lee get up as if he's prepared to fight more, and Guy's trying to tell him, no, you've done enough, I'm proud of you, and then turns around and realizes that his poor student is on his feet under sheer power of will, not even conscious, and still willing to keep going. That's how much he believes in himself and his dream. And just to see the emotion on Guy's face when he realizes just how amazing his student is, can put a tear to your eye. But the one that actually got me to cry back when I watched this way back when was Naruto's speech to Zabuza about Haku in the Land of the Waves. You just see this little genin talking about Haku, so well and just understanding him better than it seemed even Zabuza did, or even realized in all the years that they had been together. And he even tells Naruto, you know, you talk too much, your emotions, your voice, and what you say is as sharp as any weapon. You take this speech with Naruto crying and saying all these things about how awful Zabuza was and didn't appreciate Haku the way he should have, and you just see this grown man, this killer, this hunter who's been evil his whole life, and you see him cry and shed tears for the person that was like practically a son to him. And I think that was the one moment in Naruto where I actually cried, because his speech was just so emotional, and you have the music, and seeing someone like Zabuza cry and realize the mistakes he's made, and he never got to tell Haku all these things to him, definitely got me emotional. But that's probably the biggest one for me.
Nero, what about you? You have any emotional moments or any deaths in the series that was really, really sad and you just remember it and it stood out?
I remember in particular the whole Neji versus Hinata thing. It's like Neji was beating the brakes off of her. It was like he broke her down bit by bit, and it was like tragic because she was in circumstances that she couldn't control, and so was Neji. So him taking his anger out on her, it's just like it was just so messed up. And the fact that she got up and she never really gave up until they had to practically stop him from killing her. It was just like, it was one of those moments that made me wish that Neji had got his comeuppance. And then also the whole Neji versus Naruto fight. It was like Neji believes in fate, that people are stuck to a certain thing forever and they can't really get out of it. And Naruto straight up proved them wrong in the fight that they had.
Okay, I'm gonna go next on mine. So I have two moments. I think it was a very emotional moment with the Haku death. I would say that one is up there. Like that Land of Waves arc, the way it ended is just 100% perfect. I don't think it could have gotten any better or shown the human emotions of this anime as much as it did there, and it continues from there, of course, no doubt. But it was the first signifier of saying, wow, this is really fucking good. So just the fact of, once again, yes, showing that Zabuza, this hardened killer, is now having this no talk jutsu, which comes up like very often when Naruto talks to people and tries to convince them, hey, your ninja way is tainted, what you're doing is wrong, and how you weren't paying attention to Haku the whole time. And of course, riddled with emotions. I think also the cool part is how Zabuza had like no arms. His arms weren't working because Kakashi like stabbed him. And because of this emotion, it made him care. And you saw the guy defiling like Haku's body, kicking him. He just goes and he kills all of those people, every single one, with like a kunai in his mouth. And it's like the most saddest and the most awesome thing you will probably ever see. And then of course he asks Kakashi, hey, put my body next to Haku. And it's just so fucking sad, man. It's really just something that really gets your emotions and feelings. Next, I would say another emotional moment is just seeing how the flashbacks were incorporated with Naruto and Sasuke with the final battle at the Valley of the End. I thought that was well good. How they sort of were opposites. They had opposite opinions of each other, and Sasuke was telling him stuff like, well, what do you know? You were never alone, blah, blah, blah. And then we know that's just a smokescreen because the entire village did not like Naruto at all. And they thought he was a bumbling idiot and he never had any friends. So it was a really cool moment where he signified himself as an equal when Sasuke put on the headband and said, you know what, I'm gonna fight you just like you're fighting me right now. You're my equal. You won't scratch my headband though. I thought that was a cool moment because once again, it's more acknowledgement to the fight itself and just what is going on between two friends, going through a very, very rough patch. And I thought that was really well done. So that is my two answers for one emotional death and one emotional moment. Next up is Justin. What do you think of this question so far? What is the big emotions on your end for Naruto for what you've seen for part 1?
Well, I'm gonna sound like a broken record now with this one, but my real big pick personally was the fight between Naruto and Sasuke at the Valley of the End. Like, not like just anyone from the fight, like everything with the fight, like before it, during it, and what would become as the result of that fight, what it would just lead for just everything later on. Just the fight itself is very well done. The moments between, like, them, like, trying to freaking practically kill each other at that point, and even despite all that, Naruto is just still saying, like, how he still considers him a friend and he's going to stop him. I'm just like, Jesus Christ, what? I'm like, people can say what they will about Naruto as a character, but he has his fucking moments. Even like, I know a lot of his better moments are in Shippuden, but like even in part 1, he has his fucking moments. Like, you cannot deny that. You are actually lying if you say Naruto doesn't have his moments in part 1. And if there's no better example than the freaking fight with Sasuke at the Valley of the End, because after everything, he's still like, I'm not going to kill you. I'm going to bring you back. He's just trying to beat some freaking sense into this man who's not listening because he's just too blinded by the fact that, of all people, Naruto, is now caught up to it, practically exceeding him in power because of what happened on that fight with the roof. Because let's not forget the water towers. The freaking example they make. You think that his Chidori, that Sasuke's Chidori, made a bigger hole in that one water tower compared to Naruto's Rasengan making like that tinier one in the front. But then when he sees the other side, the freaking giant hole is blown there, and he's just like, how? How did Naruto, of all fucking people, get more powerful than me? And he's just tunneling, blinded by all this like rage. It's just like, I have to get stronger. Also on this whole twisted quest of strength to fucking eventually kill Itachi and get his vengeance. Like, this whole quest for vengeance just keeps on blinding this man's mind for years and years and years. And then it all culminates, at least for one time for these two, at this valley. And like, a little sneaking into part 2 here, but I mean, put Seeking Answers from Ninja Storm 3, I think it is, over this, and you'll get the same fucking vibe again. I'm telling you, there's just something about those two fighting at that valley that just keeps bringing out some of the best moments in this entire franchise. And I don't know how Kishimoto, right? I don't know how he did it every fucking time, but it just kept fucking happening, and this was only the first one. There's just something about the Valley of the End. There is just something about that fucking valley, I swear to you.
Also, I think some of the Hokage's fault there too, so it's like, it's really symbolic that this is the final journey for those characters. But next up is Kaneki. What do you think of this question?
I had there was one moment I actually thinking about. This is the only rare time where I do feel bad for Sakura, the character, and it's during they were in the woods, and she was fighting, like, I want to say 3 sound ninjas, and she was trying to fight them off. She bit one of their arms and didn't let go, and so he started punching her head nonstop, and she still didn't let go. And it got even worse when they introduce the curse mark for the very first time. They show off the aura, the power. After getting bitten by Orochimaru's neck, Sasuke stand up. He asked Sakura twice of, all right, who hurt you? One of them said, I did. Looked at him. This man tried to fight Curse Mark Sasuke with his jutsu. No effect. Hit the guy. And then he tried again. This man Sasuke went behind him, grabbed his arms, told him, so you're a fan of your own arms, or something like that, and then breaks his arms. Oof, you can only imagine the scream of terror of your arms being broken by that man. And then the other Sound Ninja, like, all right, that's enough. It was time to make a deal. Before he even said that, though, Sakura was crying, her tears out, told Sasuke to stop and then hugged him from behind. That was actually a pretty emotional moment, especially since it was not the Sasuke she or Naruto know.
Yeah, that curse of hatred was really, really interesting, and that's when you get a good taste of it for the first time, because not only that, but that's how the Uchiha get stronger, is by that. So crazy scene, but definitely a very, very emotional one. Now we're moving on to the next question, which is question number 5. So, is there any notable moments of filler that you like to mention as a worthy episode for part 1? Now I'm going to go really quickly. I don't have anything for this. Does anyone else have any answers of the filler?
Nope, only when we go to part 2.
I have one at least.
Go ahead, Rat.
But if no one has anything else, Justin, you sounded like you had something.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a like, you know, like a remembrance of an arc, but more so because there's a personal story attached to it. If anything, I don't know the formal name of the arc. It's the one where they're searching for that beetle, because, and if you know, you know. But the reason why I remember that one so vividly well, is mainly because this, like, let this tell you about the time that I freaking discovered the show and everything. This was like in the earlier days of YouTube. Like, this was before finding anime elsewhere was easy, whether official or other means, and said other means not potentially giving you a freaking virus every, like, you know, 2 seconds with pop-up ads and shit. Y'all know the kind. Or just endangering your system in general. But what I mainly remember about that whole beetle arc is that I remember, because it was not just me that also got into Naruto. It was my brother. Like, we both, like, you know, watched the show, and this is also when simul dubbing was not really a thing. Japan got the show, we didn't get it for a while, in terms, like, we were like hella behind here in the States. So that particular arc I remember seeing, because this was in the earlier days of YouTube, where you could somehow upload several part videos of episodes from the Japanese dub with subtitles somehow on YouTube, and they wouldn't get freaking nuked by anime companies, at least not too fast. So if you saw them in time, you could realistically watch Japanese episodes of Naruto on YouTube. Like, let that speak for just how ages ago that was. It's like, holy fuck, I can't even remember the year. That's how long ago that was. But I remember, like, seeing him watch that stuff, like, to this, like, because, like, our desks are, like, my desk is, like, right here, his desk is, like, right there to my right. And I'm seeing him watch some of the stuff. It's just like, whoa, what? It's like Japanese? What is this? We don't even have this episode yet. And I made sure to look it up too. We didn't have that arc yet here in the States. I was like, oh my god, I'm seeing into the future here. Technically, I'm seeing all this crap. I'm seeing freaking Naruto not understanding why. Like, oh gee, you mean to tell me the only other person who would be around this area all of a sudden near a fucking pond with a cool waterfall and shit? Who would you think it was? Like, my god, man. And just everything afterwards. I just, that's mainly the reason why I can remember that arc so vividly well. It's because it was the first time that I really saw that you could actually watch these shows on the internet. Hell, even on YouTube. And sometimes even like, way before the States get it. And to me, that discovery was just like a galaxy brain moment, because it's like I don't have to wait for the TV. I don't have to hope to hell that they're actually showing the next episode properly in the same arc without skipping either behind or forwards, because Jesus Christ. And yeah, sure, nowadays, again, watching anime is like a million times easier than it ever was before. But just remember, this was like it's like the 2000s, so it wasn't as easy compared to now, where it's just like, oh, I want to watch Naruto, done. So I will always remember that whatever Beetle filler arc, just because it led me further down the rabbit hole of anime watching, to the fact that this was that watching anime on the internet was pretty much going to be like the future of it, especially if you wanted to do it immediately. And look at where we are now.
What about you, Rat? It is your turn.
Okay, so I don't really have a particular filler arc. I have a filler episode that always cracks me up. There is an episode where these two schmucks try to infiltrate the Hidden Leaf Village, like gather their secrets and whatnot. So they go undercover as Rock Lee and Guy Sensei, as the real Rock Lee and Guy Sensei are off on a mission. And the entire village is having none of them. They actually know that these aren't the real Rock Lee and Guy. Everyone knows it except for Naruto. So Tsunade and Sakura just keep sending them on these ridiculously absurd missions, and they're exhausted, and they run into the real Rock Lee and Guy Sensei, who just bop them. And it's the end of the episode, and it's just a funny little one-off for me. I don't remember going too far into Naruto filler, but that episode always kind of sticks out to me because it was so damn funny. Because Naruto is such an idiot that he can't see through such an obvious disguise when it's your profession to be able to see through deception. All right, I'm done.
He forgot being a ninja for like a few seconds. But Kaneki, I saw you had an example of this.
There is, and I don't know if I can call it filler or canon, because it felt like it felt like this episode. It was a mix of a filler, but also an important episode. Kakashi Sensei's real face.
I feel dumb not forgetting about that.
I keep forgetting about that too, because I'm just like so used to him wearing the mask.
Quote it all the time too. Wow, holy shit.
That was my. If it counts as a filler, then by God, it is the best filler. It's the best filler of that part one, because my God, that episode was sweet perfection of comedy between Team 7 and Kakashi. It was like, why can't we get filler something like that? That shit is funny and entertaining. They just want to know their sensei's real face.
So, can you had an answer for this?
I stole her answer
before
apparently.
It was stolen by the Sharingan.
Well, I'm glad I picked two, but yes, that was one of mine. But the one, I guess if you want to call it a filler arc, the one out of all of them that I really enjoyed and always remembered is where they travel to the village hidden in the stars. And the reason why I remember this one, granted, it was one of the only enjoyable ones in my opinion, because some of them were just so trash that I don't even remember them. They're not worth remembering. But the story behind the whole reason why they were there was interesting. The jutsus were really cool because they obviously, as a different hidden village, have different jutsus. But the one thing that I always remember about it, and I don't know why, is the mom and her Natsuhibushi song is stuck in my head permanently ever since I've been a child. That song, like every time anybody brings up anything about Naruto and filler arcs, or anybody says anything about the village hidden in the stars, that is the first thing that comes to my mind is that song. And I could probably quote the whole thing. That's how perma stuck it is in my head. But those are probably the only two fillers that I think are even worth watching in the whole first part of Naruto.
Anyone else on fillers before we move on? Nope, go
Other
on.
than that, behind this mask is another mask. Pretty cool, huh?
Behind this mask is another mask. Pretty cool. All right, next is question number 6. So, how do you feel about Naruto Uzumaki's character growth throughout the entirety of part 1? His mention of the ninja way, him having a coming of age story. How do you feel about this? And I'm going to go with Kaneki first.
Where do I begin with this? The feeling of, his growth throughout the entirety of part 1. First off, it made me like the character even more than Sasuke, because fuck Sasuke. It definitely shows throughout the more episodes you watch, the more how Naruto eventually matures, becomes a better man of himself, stronger. It reminds me of another anime character that from another series, another shonen series. Oh, Goku. Oh, sorry. But I do like how they progress with his growth from beginning to end.
All right, Rad, it is your turn. How do you feel about Naruto's growth?
For me, it's one of the moments where the mortality of being a ninja hits him all at once. It happens during the bell tests from Kakashi, where all of them failed because they don't understand what being a ninja is all about. It is about teamwork. It is about putting your life on the line. It is about putting the lives of your comrades before your own. And then Kakashi walks over to this stone and tells them that everyone on this stone is a hero. And Naruto points at it and it's like, oh boy! Or he's tied up so he can't. Oh boy! I want to be on that stone too! That sounds awesome! And these heroes are a special kind of hero because they are heroes that died in the line of duty. So I think that Naruto allowing the mortality of a life of a ninja to sink in and hit him like a truck is the first step that allows him to sort of mature and understand that being a ninja isn't just about him. So if I'm going to point to a specific moment of character development, that's usually the one that first comes to mind.
All right, I guess I'll go next. So this is a very interesting question. I believe for his character growth, once again, it's all about that whole coming of age and showing people that he wants to be, the Hokage, that he wants to be, out there. He wants to sort of, be there. He's not there yet in terms of like in the beginning. He's not there yet in terms of like trying to signify, hey, I'm here to protect all my comrades. That's where the teamwork is needed. But he grows more and more and more. You see at the end of each arc, it starts to grow into his natural like sort of care for other people, and that's the main thing that you're gonna see about this character that will reflect as it goes on in the timeline. There's a lot of people that owe their lives to who Naruto is through his attitude of just being there for them when they needed it the most. And you see this with Gaara. It's really one of those things where it's like the guy is just a pure psychopath, and even going in that dark direction, Naruto was the one that pulled him back. I know people make fun, and I'm gonna bring this up yet again because I brought it up before, but people make fun of the whole talk no jutsu thing, where it's like, oh, he's talking his opponents to death, he's trying to get them on his side or whatever, but it has an integral story beat to it. It works for what it is because, like I said before in the past, it's nothing new to shonen storytelling, but it's important here because of how the characters develop and change for the better for themselves. And I think it shows a sense of freedom. I think it shows a sense of camaraderie, and it shows a sense of those other people growing alongside Naruto. So when you get to, you know, stuff we can't talk about with part 2, it culminates in a very interesting way, if I were to twist it that way. So it has a payoff, it has a purpose, and you just want to see how much this character grows in the process through all the adversity, especially since his friends start to, you know, go down a dark path and he tries to save them, especially with, you know, Sasuke and everything. So I think it has a purpose, it has a meaning, and it has layers to it, which I thoroughly enjoyed. He went from loser to, you know, becoming the symbol of the Hidden Leaf, and I think that shows how important it was to the entire franchise. Next up is Justin. Justin, I'll go with you. What do you think of his character growth throughout the entire series for Naruto?
So it is definitely, I mean, first of all, it's definitely a hell of a slow burner, like his character growth. And I feel like a lot, like with the length of the, like just part 1 alone, a lot of people just tend to lose it a bit because of how it tends to go. But I feel like here, the length of like part 1 does actually go into his favor, because to me it shows a slight bit of realism here. I mean, as realistic as you can get in anime sometimes, how there are some people that grow in a different pace than others. Like this whole thing especially is just like Naruto lived a very different life, so of course he's going to learn things differently, he's going to grow differently, he's going to go through different experiences. Hell, and it's considering some of the people he meets later on, definitely learning through different experiences. But the fact of the matter is that he does learn, while he still has his moments, he retains that information. He does go he does actually learn from his mistakes. He learns to grow from everything else. I mean, hell, let me bring up, like, you know, one example here. The Naruto Neji fight during the Chunin exam finals. He motherfucker learned to actually try and utilize the Nine Tails chakra when all of his fucking points are sealed by Neji's palm techniques. It's like he's finally learning to actually utilize it in a way that's not omega level destructive, to where it'll benefit him in combat and it won't be killing anyone or make him go completely out of control. Like, it's starting to learn that. Or just him utilizing, hell, we're probably gonna get, who knows, maybe we'll get more into like this particular technique later on in another question, but when Jiraiya is teaching him the Rasengan, like with the water balloon, like literally just for ages and ages just does not know how to freaking do it right. He knows what he's supposed to do, and only does it, he now realizes with basic math, he's like, oh shit, I'm doing this wrong. So what does he do? He gets one of his shadow clones to do it for him, to put it in his hand to create the chakra needed to make the technique. It's so minute, but it's just sometimes like, yeah, you'll have your moments, like your scenes where he definitely talks, but sometimes also the little things. And and again, with him talking, and also with trying to bring some of his opponents, like, out of this whole, like, darkness shit, I'm actually gonna go back to the Naruto Gaara fight like towards the end of the Chunin arc, because as that was mentioned, it sort of hit me. I feel like Naruto is looking in sort of like a weird mirror. He may have had a rough childhood, but at the end of the day, he did bounce back by eventually, like, getting to make friends with people. And when he looks at Gaara, it's like that could have been Naruto if things went differently for him. He's looking into a foil, like that could have been me had I not had any friends, had I not had anybody to back me up. If anything got worse for him, he could have ended up like that, but he didn't, and he just doesn't want that to keep happening. Yeah, it's like your typical shonen pro tech, but hey, I mean, like, what are you gonna do? Like, this, like, if you're not gonna like to see the typical shonen tropes, and why you're watching a shonen in the first place, you gotta expect one or two or maybe more. It just depends on how it's done, and in some cases here in Naruto, like stuff like that, I think it's done pretty well. And again, this is just part one of his character growth. I mean, with part two, we see that shit in full force, but that's for another day. But as for part one, though, like from beginning all the way until the end, like, pre-time skip, I would say dude's been through plenty, and even by the end of part one, he still has plenty to show for it. And that this before like the 3-year time gap for part two.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd say again, it's a bit of a slow burner, especially with the length of part one on its own. But by the end, it definitely shows that it wasn't for nothing.
Kat, what about you? You are next up to bat.
I will keep mine relatively short. But I think obviously Naruto's character growth way more pronounced in 2, which obviously will be discussed in another podcast. But I do think that in the short amount of time you see him in part 1, where he is still so young. I mean, I think people forget exactly how young these kids are. Like, they're like 12, 13 years old, and they're expected to do these things that grown adults can't even do sometimes in their series. But I think his growth is quite obvious if you compare to when you first see him in the first episode, where this kid couldn't even pull off a simple jutsu that every kid in the class could do easily. He couldn't even make one shadow clone to look like himself, and he couldn't even make a shadow clone or a clone in the likes of someone else either. Like, we all saw him fuck up and make the Hokage with a giant bottom lip, and just it was awful. But it took him being told by Mizuki that, oh, you can pass the exam if you learn one of these jutsus in this secret scroll. And he put so much effort and studied all night after he robbed them of this scroll until Iruka found him again. And they even say it several times in the series that not only did he master the basic shadow clone jutsu, but then proceeded to go on and learn the multiple shadow clone jutsu that very few others in the whole series can do. It's a forbidden technique. And so you see this kid grow in that aspect, but then throughout the first part, you see him work so hard to get better. He pours every drop of sweat, blood, and tears that he does into his training. And you don't see this kind of dedication in so many of the other Genin. Some of them are just born with really good abilities and they don't work really hard. I mean, I even look at some of them and I think they're just super fucking lazy with some of their techniques. And but he is one of the few that puts hours upon hours into his craft, and it shows, especially as someone mentioned, when you get to see him learn from Jiraiya the Rasengan and how much thought he puts into it and how he has to use a different method to learn it because he just cannot control it the way the fourth Hokage learned it. And granted, again, he's just a boy, and he figured all this out on his own and perfected it within the course of like a month or two. And it's just amazing the amount of progress he makes just in this part. And then we'll get to see so much more when we get to part 2.
All right, so Nero, are you here? Oh, he is out of there. All right, we are moving on to the next question then. All right, so have you played any of the games centered around Naruto Part 1? If so, what do you think of them? Rad, I'll have you go first.
Oh boy. So everyone has their PlayStation 2s, that's super nice, but for the most part, I had a GameCube. So in 2006, along comes Naruto Clash of Ninja. It is a very basic fighting game, just 8 characters because it's the Land of Waves arc and Naruto's getting really popular and push it out now. But then the sequel showed up 6 months later, Clash of Ninja 2. If you ask me, these are games worth playing because in my mind, they are incredible fighting games with good attention to detail. Shikamaru doesn't block your attacks. He dodges and weaves your attacks. So attention to detail on character quirks and techniques that really only get better with each game as the roster increases and as the characters before them get more polished and introduce more techniques that help set them apart in terms of playstyle. If there's any Naruto games I can recommend you track down, it's the Clash of Ninja games. And I really could go on about them because they are the one Naruto games that I have played the most, too much, that I'm trying to track down the Japanese versions we never got through emulation, and the Wii games that I didn't play because they're fighting games on the Wii. But really, the Clash of Ninja ones are the ones I played and that I recommend wholeheartedly. They're good, fun anime fighters. I'd expect no less from aiding the people who brought you Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3.
Kaneki, what about you? What do you think of the Naruto Part 1 games if you played them?
Well, during that time era where Rad said he only had a GameCube at the time, I was one of the rare people that had both the PS2 and the GameCube as primary systems. Well, that is if I'm, not playing my brother's Xbox, of course. But regardless, I was playing both the Naruto Clash of the Ninja game and the Naruto. I think they were fantastic games. Like, I don't think Naruto games could get, in terms of fighting games, could get any better until we hit this PS3, Xbox 360 era. And I think you know where this is going, Ren. You ever heard of Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm 1?
Yes, I have.
Oh man, you want to talk about detailed fighting game? That fighting game. Not only was it the first introduction to an anime arena, when it first introduction to anime brawler, when it was good, like an arena fighter. But in terms of the in the universe of Naruto, full 3D fighting style, you have so many options from movements to attacks to where you could read your opponent, and even has the story from the very beginning until the end of. It's like this is like what I wanted for a next gen Naruto, and I don't think it could get any better. Too bad I'm gonna have to save the others for part 2, because the rest of the games are more likely part 2 material.
Yeah, I'm just gonna chime in real quick on this. I think it was just all the way back in the past when I was, just testing out my PS3, I happened to stumble across the Storm games. I played a couple of them, mostly online, and I thought they were pretty fun. I thought it was pretty cool just going around and doing, like, you know, Rasengans on people or Chidoris and getting some W's, and it was a really fun little arena style fighter when I was playing it at the time. I also really like Ultimate Ninja 3. I thought that game was amazing for what it was. It was a pure ensemble of, like, all these characters that you could play with, and just, you know, how the hard blocks was coordinated in that game, and how you had to, like, really just maneuver around the environment all crazy, use your kunai, your jutsus, everything on screen just symbolize, like, not only the frenetic style of Naruto, but how great it all felt when it came together, which is why it was so fun when we were playing, like, modded versions and everything. But for that one in particular, that was my first introduction into Ultimate Ninja, and I thought it was incredible for what it was. I still haven't played Class of the Ninja yet. I know Drill said, oh, you need to play, you need to get into this. So I'm gonna give it a shot, hopefully sometime soon, maybe tomorrow, and see how I feel about it. And ultimately, as I move into those games and more part 2 games, I could talk about those then. But my experience has been positive so far on the Naruto games. The only thing is that, you know, currently is some issues with one of the current releases with AI voice acting, but we're not gonna get into that.
Can we not talk about that?
Yeah, it's funny when it's all broken down, but still, we're gonna skip right past that speed bump of, well, garbage. Oh, I have not played the PSP games, actually. That's something else I have to look into. So
You haven't?
no,
Shit.
I can.
You're missing out.
Those are games I have to definitely download tomorrow. Do you know the names of them?
Naruto Ultimate Ninja Heroes 1, 2, and 3. So basically, if you like the PS2 games of the Ultimate Ninja series, you would definitely like the PSP versions, because it's basically that, but on PSP.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's fascinating. I'll definitely check those out. But Justin, do you have any experience with the Naruto games?
Well, for part 1 strictly, mainly just Clash of Ninja 2. And it's really the only one I got to experience, but I mean, to be honest though, like, it still holds up pretty freaking well to this day. I've seen footage of the first one mainly because of some Call Me Johnny's review a couple of years ago. God, that was a couple of years ago. Oh my god. Anyway, that very much looked like a what we would call open betas now, because oh my god, while a lot of it still looks similar enough to what we would get later in the sequel, it's just, yeah, this was very much a testing ground for a Naruto fighting game, with its half an hour story mode and it's just very light character roster, and that was really about it. It's like, oh, like, okay, good thing we did get the sequel, good thing I was introduced with the sequel at the very least. But at the same time, it's like, wow, I was spoiled. What at first was a pretty freaking good Naruto fighting game. Just all this, just bigger roster characters, all these stages, being like, hey, wait, I know this part from the show. I know this one now. I remember this from the storybook goes all the way up to the tuning exam. I remember this moment. It's abridged as hell, but it's actually fun to play. Oh my god, this 1-on-2 fight towards the end sucks. God, wow, what the hell? But and like some of the moves, especially like one of the freaking counters of all things is Naruto doing the goddamn sexy jutsu. It's like, that's such an attention to detail they didn't have to do, but they did. There's a whole load of details that I love, like from hell the pre-fight interactions. So, like, depending on who you choose as opponent, you get a few special interactions here. Like, you know, some special lines and everything. Some of the finishers you are just like, I mean, hell, freaking, this was like again during like the freaking earlier days of like Naruto on TV, so tuning exams took a while to get to certain parts, but I remember seeing certain moves like the Lion's Barrage, the Uzumaki Barrage, the freaking the Neji's, the 64 palms and all that kind of shit, just a lot of those ones. But oh man, you want to tell me about a freaking secret I didn't know about for a while now? What Clash of Ninja never tells you, that if you're playing as Rock Lee, you can actually, I think it's like a button combination, but you can sort of like sort of slowly but surely turn off his inhibitors, like he did in this fight with Gaara. You can make him go into like one power to say, but then if you do it again, you go into the Hidden Lotus. His HP, like, slowly drains while you're using it, but he gets fucking fast and he gets strong. And it's like, I don't know where the game tells you can do that. I found this out from one of those old cheat sites way back in the heyday of cheat sites. Back when you used to look up that shit for all the Grand Theft Auto games because all those button combinations were next to impossible to remember because there were so fucking many of them. And I'm like, this is not real. What the hell is this Hidden Lotus crap we're talking about? Oh, what is this? And then later on, I see it in the anime, and I'm like, oh, that's what they meant. I remember that from the game. It all keeps coming back to me with Clash of Ninja 2 because some things I saw first from the game, some things that, and then later in the anime, or vice versa. It's like, oh, this is where it was from. But it being the thing that got me into the show to begin with, I would fucking hope so. But I just have so many fond memories of that game because I would play the ever-loving hell out of it after I got it. I would freaking go through that story mode. I would still keep trying like hell with that damn 1 versus 2 fight of you playing a Sasuke versus Gaara and Kankuro because it's a fucking 1-on-2 fight in a fighting game. What you think was going to happen? Man, when I freaking got through that and I got to the last fight with Gaara, I felt on top of the fucking world and just like, ha, suck it. And again, it still holds up pretty well today as like your typical 2D fighter. It's got everything you need. I feel like you can play as anybody and you could still have a fun time with it regardless. And again, so many of the funny ass fucking references. Hell, Shikamaru's Shadow Possession Jutsu special move. It actually spawns a wall where your opponent will ding themselves in the head, like in the freaking Chunin example. I'm like, that's so good. Like literally just like, oh, wall out of nowhere. Okay, it's like bonk. And it's shit like that. Why I still think at least once people have got to play Clash of Ninja 2, especially Naruto fans who actually haven't played Clash of Ninja 2, which sadly is plausible because it's never really seen a re-release. So do what you got to do to play it. I highly recommend it.
Tolkien, have you played any of these games?
Out of the ones listed, probably not, because it sounds like most of them are fighting games, and if people know me, then they know me and fighting games do not go together. Not a fan. Never have been. Just now trying to get into some fighters, but when I was growing up,
That is a hater, to be honest.
Oh, right, hush, quiet. Anyway, back in the old days when I was growing up, my first video game console was the old Game Boy Advance. And my first Naruto game was the Naruto Ninja Council that came out in 2003. And I probably played the ever-living shit out of that game, as well as the 2 that came after it. And then proceeded into right before high school. I ended up getting a DS, and then that was probably the first fighter I tried, if I remember correctly. The Ninja Destiny games were semi-fighters with maybe a partial story in there somewhere. Did not play those super long. My brother was more into those than I was. But the 2 games I distinctly remember that ended up being my favorite from the DS was the Path of the Ninja 1 and 2, like the only RPG style games that Naruto got for those consoles way back when. And I think I still have them somewhere, which is actually, for whatever reason, making me want to play them. I put so many hours into these. It was so great being able to pick and choose characters to be on your team and do these missions that had nothing to do with even the story like itself, like from the manga or from the show. Like especially 2 was something completely different, its own story. and it was so great being able to play these, and I have so many fond memories of them. I think the only other game I can think of that I enjoyed as much was the Rise of a Ninja game that came to the Xbox 360, and end up really liking that one as well because it's all story based, and you follow from like the very start of the show all the way up until, oh god, I can't even remember where the first one ends. But I know there was a sequel to that. Never got to play it, but from what I heard from somebody, can't remember who it was, told me the second one was not as good as the first one, but I still remember the first one fondly. I even played it, I don't know, 4 years ago when I first started my YouTube channel. It was one of the first games I played for my channel. And ever since that one, I honestly do not think I have played a Naruto game since, because I think almost every single one has been some sort of fighter, like all these ones that are on the PC now that everybody plays, and connections, and you know, I'm just like, nope, if it ain't like the RPG style that I grew up with and that I really enjoy, then I'll probably never play it. I mean, I have most of them, just haven't played it. But the ones from when I was a child, those will always have a special place in my heart for sure.
Well, as that was a riveting story of Tolkien going gaga over Naruto games. I was told to shut up and chat. It is Nero's turn if he's here. Have you played any of these games so far, and what is your experience?
So far, I played Ultimate Ninja Heroes on PSP, Ultimate Ninja 2, and Ultimate Ninja 3 I bought a while ago. And I did play the Clash of Ninja games. I'd say the Clash of Ninja games are really, really fun. And the stuff I looked up for those series, I'm even in the Discord for it. It's like you laugh hard enough in those games, you're getting half a life bar taken from you from just a throw. These are the same. Remember, these are the same people, the same devs behind Marvel, Bloody Roar, those games, and the way they made those games is actually pretty interesting. Solid 3D fighters and stuff like that. As you advance to like part two, also, well, Clash of Ninja 3 and 4, stuff like that, that's going into part two. They've improved a lot of the mechanics and the gameplay and stuff like that. And the Ultimate Ninjas games, like, I think 3 started with, like, it started from 3, 4, and 5. They had, like, unique story modes, like RPG elements, and like, even their, I did say their old stories, and they say RPG stuff. And they did have Uzumaki Chronicles, which is like a giant filler game. They'll let you play as some of the characters of the game, well, in the series. And they had like the jutsus mapped to like your shoulder button and your trigger button, so you will use them at specific times. And like, I've been trying to lab Ultimate Ninja 2, and it was like trying to get combos down. It's a bit tricky for me because I don't really fully understand it yet. But when I get it down, it's like y'all notice. And also, I do like how they introduce like certain filler characters, like the Green Beast, which is like Naruto and like Broccoli's costume or attire. I think he appeared in like a couple games, Ultimate Ninja 2 or 3. I don't really see him outside of like other stuff. Overall, I feel like those games, if they had some tweaking or made by a different dev, it'd probably be like a super in-depth crazy fighter.
All right, so we're gonna move on to the next one, which is question number 8. So, Naruto has like a lot of moves techniques and a lot of styles put into the series. So what is your favorite jutsu, Kekkei Genkai, and chakra technique that was utilized during part 1? And the first one that's gonna go is Rat.
Always me. Okay.
He's
So,
like, not me first.
okay, so I'm gonna get straight to the literal point. Byakugan. It is hacks, it is X-ray vision. You can see the literal chakra points plus and minus, so you can basically pick and choose either buffs or debuffs. And it is used most effectively in Neji's hands because in the fight with Hinata, he can practically make your heart stop. I don't think there's anything more fatal than going after someone's chakra veins. So Byakugan is always one of my favorite techniques, and when the veins kick in around your head, it always looks so menacing. So Byakugan's my number 1 pick. It's just a giant, it's like I said, it's just little giant X-ray vision. It's just body hacks.
Tolkien, what about you? What do you think of all these cool techniques, and what is your favorite?
There are quite a few that are really good, and I technically had 2. And of course, Rat obviously took the best one. I mean, who's gonna disagree that the Byakugan is just so great? Especially in the part 1 of Naruto, where you see it used so well. Granted, a lot of people like the Sharingan, but to me, it doesn't really get good until you get into part 2. But aside from the Byakugan, the one jutsu that I really liked to see was the dead demon consuming seal that Sarutobi uses against Orochimaru. And the reason why I like it so much is, one, I mean, seeing that as a kid and you think, oh my god, we're in a horror movie now. You're seeing this Reaper just licking this blade and looks like it just wants to feast on everybody that is there. And the look of horror that you see on Orochimaru's face, because one, he cannot see it. And, Sarutobi's just talking about this jutsu, and Orochimaru, who claimed to spend hours studying jutsus and learning all these amazing things. And this is one of the few jutsus that he was like, he's never heard of it, has no idea what he's on about, has no idea how to counteract it. And it being handed down through the Uzumaki clan is just so great to see it put in action as he uses it against the reincarnated clones, essentially, of the first and second Hokage, and then proceeds to use it on Orochimaru to get rid of the use of his arms. And overall, I just think it is such a stunning jutsu to see in action. Just so great. I would have loved to see it used more, but granted, it's one of those secret techniques. You don't get to see it that often. But once you get the backstory later on in part 2 and you get to see it again. But seeing it for the first time right there was so great, and I enjoyed every second of it.
I'm going to say that one of the techniques I like, and we see this like later on in part 1, it's when Itachi comes in, it's the Tsukiyomi. Look, I'm gonna break this down, alright? So what happens is, you think that basically Kakashi is this big giant badass with the Sharingan. You're trying to figure out how he got it because he's not an Uchiha, obviously. And then you see that both of them face off, and Itachi's a big problem. He's Sasuke's brother. When you see the Mangekyo Sharingan activated for the first time, and Itachi basically captures Kakashi in it, he goes into this world, this plane where Kakashi is like on a cross, and everything is in this weird, it's like a red sky, and there's this like blackened background, it's like grayscale, and he's hanging up there like he's Jesus, and he gets stabbed by like multiple Itachis in this genjutsu, and the whole time this guy's getting like tortured, and he can't do anything about it. Asuma can't do anything. Kurenai can't do anything. They have their eyes closed because they don't want to get caught in it either. It's a fearful technique where basically the person is living out like almost days worth of being like tortured literally in their mind. So I think it's one of the really, really good jutsus, and it's also OP GGs if you're caught into it, and you can't really do much about it unless you have like a similar or stronger sort of Mangekyo, or maybe a counter to it as a technique. You can barely escape it if you're caught by it. So I really love that. And I mean, it was used briefly, but it wasn't shown off to its fullest potential, which is like part 2, and that is Amaterasu. So you see in the frog stomach, when Itachi is trying to escape, you see a glimpse of it where the stomach starts burning, and there is black flame. If that flame touches you, and it will burn you, it's not normal fire. You're burnt until you are entirely incinerated. And I thought that was also a cool technique, but it's something you see more in part 2. But since you do see it in part 1, it does kind of count. I love this technique a whole lot. It's one of those, if you get caught by it, GG's, because you're gonna probably burn to death. And that is it for my answers. Next up is, let's see, Mr. Nero. What about you?
Okay, so one of my favorite techniques from the series from part 1, the eight gates. I know the 8 gates was in part 2, and the end, you already know what happens. So the 8 gates, it boosts your speed, your strength, all of that, but with the trade-off of you getting hurt and your body getting destroyed over time. And you get, the higher the gates you go, the more access you have to forbidden techniques or dangerous techniques, like the hidden lotus, the primary lotus, and a second favorite, I would say, it's like the ice spear jutsu. It's like they wouldn't even know which one is the real you, and you just go ahead and you business with it.
Justin, it is your turn. What is your favorite technique, jutsu, or kekkei?
Oh, first honorable mention. So a lot of those other previous choices. I mean, my God, man, I remember that like, just that Tsukiyomi shit. I remember that episode being aired a fucking lot back in the day. So I still have vivid memories of Kakashi going through literal fucking hell. So,
He's
goddamn,
getting stabbed to death by like multiple Itachis. It's crazy what happened the first time.
like hell of a mention there, and I'll give you that. Also, hell of a mention to Byakugan, because that shit is just might as well just be a bloodline cheat code. So I, in comparison, besides definitely giving some nods to those, I'm gonna definitely be hella simple here. Like, I mean, one of my fucking favorite things that ever is just one of the most simplest shit that I love. I just love the fucking Shadow Clone Jutsu in general. It's fucking iconic. It's not just also useful in battle. It's just useful fundamentally. I mean, think about it for a second. You can make a clone or a few of yourself, and you can have them do things for you in your day-to-day life. You see Naruto do that shit all the time later on, just using his shadow clones or something that's not in combat. There's so many uses you could have for just being able to duplicate yourself. I love the concept of being able to do that. And hell, if you're in combat and you have the freaking energy to do so, make an entire army of yourself, as we've seen him do plenty of times before. And sometimes even charging up with some really fucking crazy techniques, or just punching and kicking. Hey, that always works too. You can't ever forget taijutsu. Don't be like the writers later on. It's just like, no, you gotta remember your roots here. But it's been, speaking of fucking techniques I mentioned earlier, I love the fuck out of the Rasengan. It is such a it's a simple thing in concept. You like this ball of pure energy right here in your hands. Either you create it, you get one of your clones to create it. The point is, you put that shit in your hand. And right here, the smaller ball. Hell, I mean, later on we see the stuff he can do with it, but that's more so for in Shippuden. But just this ball, this seemingly like it's like it's a tennis ball size of energy right here in his hand. It just seems like it's like, what's that gonna do? And then you see what it can do to a person. You can see what it can do to objects. That may be small, but it's freaking deadly as hell, and it can literally make you spin around unironically like a freaking big ass top just going into the air. If that shit gets a direct hit on you, you're being made to look like a bitch if you get hit by a Rasengan. I just love the simplicity of such a technique. It's nothing super flashy, it's nothing super crazy when you really look at it. It's just a fucking big ass tennis ball chakra, but it's a big ass tennis ball chakra that can fucking hurt. And imagine what happens if you made it any bigger. And another honorable mention will go to the lightning blade or the Chidori, as Sasuke would call his variation. Like, that's also just fucking cool. Who the hell wouldn't love being able to wield freaking lightning in their hands? Like, you feel like a fucking force user, just like just the mere concept of being able to do something like that is always something I just loved as anything in general. Again, it's another simple ass concept. You have lightning in your hands, okay, but it's fucking cool. Like, both Sasuke and Kakashi's use of it, especially, it's just like the first time you see the lightning blade, it's just like pfft. And again, another mention's gonna go. It's a Clash of Ninjutsu. Like, when you can, that's Kakashi's special move, and it actually gains more power if you take the risk to charge it up first by holding down the button before letting it go. If you charge it the whole way through, it's just like just does like a fucking crazy amount of damage. And hell, as he pulls his arm back, he says, "Don't take it personally." I'm like, motherfucker, how do you keep doing that? And that's in his normal move when he's not lifting up to use a fucking Sharingan eye. By the way, I just like to say that's fucking crazy. Again, these are like, again, relatively simple techniques, but you can't just not give mentions to these techniques. Like, some of these are still iconic. They may not be as super crazy as some like the more nutso shit we get later on in the franchise, but they're fucking iconic and they're so bloody fucking good is what they are. And there's no way I couldn't mention any of them.
Kaneki, what about you? What is your favorite techniques?
Oh boy. I don't have too many for part one, other than the Nine Tails and the Shadow Clone Jutsu, which are runner-ups. I always prefer those when it comes to part one. Jutsus and all that, but my personal favorite jutsu, it has to be probably one of the rarest jutsus people ever saw in part one. And and you could actually spot it right during the fight between Orochimaru and the third Hokage. The fact that Orochimaru knows this jutsu is beyond people's imagination. If you pay attention closely to that fight, what would happen if there was a way to revive the first and second Hokage? That is something mind-blowing. I have never seen a jutsu quite like that before, and even watching throughout the entirety of part one. It's like, and when we get to part two, there's much more to that jutsu. Just the debut of that jutsu alone is mind-boggling. Basically reviving characters back from the dead is like, how did this man knows this jutsu?
Also, I want to add on that jutsu is so cool with just not only you can revive the dead, but the mind games of fucking with the Hokage, because it's like you're
Yep.
bringing back previous Hokages or friends of people, and they're seeing it live in 4K. So again, this is why Orochimaru was a really good villain for this arc. But
And like I said,
go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt, and like I said, when we get to part two, there is a reason why I like this jutsu a lot, because let's just say it plays an important role down the line.
It does. I know what you're talking about, but that's gonna have to be a conversation for later. Uh, we're moving to the next question, which is question number 9. So Naruto Part 1 is still known for having an entire cast of other characters centered around this chapter with their own unique backstories. Is there any backstories or character excluding Naruto that was a personal standout during this chapter? I'm gonna go first as an example. I'm gonna say Gaara's backstory was pretty good. Again, it does fall in line kind of a little bit, like you can say there are some similarities with his and Haku, but of course with changes of the, you know, tail beast inside of him, and of course people tried to kill him, and then you find out that his uncle said that no one ever loved you because Gaara's tail beast was responsible for his sister dying. It instilled a lot of hate within Gaara initially, which is why he's kind of like, well, no one really matters. I'm all to myself. And it creates this interesting, tragic backstory. Of course, there's another anime that tried to copy another anime with a character that had a tragic backstory, and it didn't really pan out too well. Jiren, I'm sorry about that, but still, it's one of those things where I liked it done right here. You get the motivation so far, you understand. So when you see Gaara being like a complete psychopath, and you find out later, it sort of makes sense. And then moving on to how the cracks sort of expose themselves, and he wants to, you know, find some longing after a certain point in time. He listens to Naruto's words after some point in time, and I know it's corny to really say it like this, but it is one of those things. But I did like it. It is the value of friendship that saved this character. So I really liked it. I really enjoyed it. I thought it resonated. I thought it's one of those things where they did a tragic character justice with his arc and everything he was going through, and just creating, you know, a monster out of someone who was basically, you know, just pushed into it. It was against their entire will. I thought that was a mirror opposite once again of Naruto. You get like a lot of mirror opposites or similes within this universe to begin with people like having similar motivations or vastly opposing views, but they have similarities to the main character of loneliness once again. So I do appreciate how it was done in this series. Next up is Rad. Do you have any personal backstories you enjoy of other characters in Naruto Part 1?
Well, not so much their backstory, but it's their general development from background character to actually real character. And this is the segment that I was saving for this particular character, Hinata. We sort of talked about how Naruto's go get 'em attitude, his chipper I never give up attitude influenced the people around him, and I don't think it influenced anyone to a bigger extent than Hinata, because she's fighting against Neji and sort of getting outplayed, but then she receives a ton of motivation and hype, and yeah, you can do this, bust his face in. Adherement from the person she had long since admired to the person she'd long since admired, and turned her into a person that actually wanted to try and actually wanted to become as cool as Naruto. So even that interaction alone, she never went back. It turned her into a completely different person, able to go toe to toe with Neji, if not for a moment, because in the end her attacks meant absolutely nothing. But that little bit of development on the sheer backstory of she's only been watching him from the background, and now the roles are reversed, and she's sort of using that as a motivation to keep getting up even when her organs are in danger of shutting down, because Naruto keeps telling her that she can't let it end like this. A lot of that's just sort of stood out to me, and it didn't really take episode after episode to sort of get to this, which I know people really love Valley at the end, but stop talking and just fight. So we mostly got this for an episode's worth of just general motivation, and really that's kind of all I need. It's like that's what made Hinata one of my favorite characters, just those moments and looks backs and flashbacks alone. Really, that's kind of all I have to say. I don't have too much on backstories on characters because they just kind of get in the way for the most part. No offense. No offense, Matt.
No,
Okay.
it's fine. None taken. None taken. Tolkien, it's your turn. What about you?
Okay, I have two. I'll try to keep it short, but one of them is Rock Lee. I just like kind of Shikamaru, who relies more on his brain over his brawn. Lee is the opposite. This guy you learn as a child and him growing up, as Guy will tell you, he has no skills in ninjutsu. He has no skills in genjutsu. This kid purely only has this taijutsu. And so most people will just write him off and say, oh, well, he's got no chance in the ninja world. Because, you know, what are you going to do if you only have taijutsu, which is your physical strength, versus someone who can put you into a genjutsu, someone who can use ninjutsu against you? And it's just amazing to see someone who was made fun of and just put down, and Guy just takes him under his wing and teaches him everything, becomes like a father figure to him, and makes him a mini version of Guy, which is amazing. And he just puts everything into his training, and as Guy so eloquently explained, you know, the time that everybody else has to put into 3 different areas to be a ninja, Lee can focus 100% on taijutsu, which made him so amazing when you see him finally getting to let go and fight against Gaara with everything he has. He is a force to be reckoned with. Of course, you get to see more later, part 2, etc. But I just enjoy his development so much, and even Guy, who you see use taijutsu exclusively, even tells you later when they see Itachi and Kisame for the first time, and he has to tell these 2 other Jonin that him being taijutsu exclusively and training with Kakashi, that you get to learn things by just looking at feet. And I mean, you don't need genjutsu. He can fight against it not even having his own genjutsu or ninjutsu, and just uses taijutsu. But my second one is Neji, purely for the fact that you see this kid go from someone who seems to just hate everybody and hate the world, especially his cousin, and just has so much spite for his own family. And when he finally gets to learn what exactly happened to his father with his uncle, and he finally realizes some things about life, especially after Naruto just beats the ever-living shit out of him, rightly so. And you just see him go from that to then, when they go on the Sasuke retrieval arc, he is there and is very supportive of the group and very supportive of Naruto, and they work well together, and you see him encouraging Lee on his own team, and you just don't see that sort of stuff before this. He's so hateful and not friendly towards people, and it's almost seeing a whole other side of him, which is really nice. And of course, we'll get to see more development as we continue into part 2, but as of part 1, I think those 2 I really enjoyed seeing the most.
Nero, it is your turn. A character that had some very interesting developments or backstory, in your opinion. What do you think about this?
I honestly think that my guy, out of all characters, is just like his backstory is basically the same of Rock Lee, but my guy's father was the inventor of the techniques that I mentioned earlier, and he beat the. They made fun of Mike Guy's father for not being able to use taijutsu or wait, not taijutsu, ninjutsu and genjutsu. So my guy's father spent most of his life perfecting the 8 gates, and he wound up beating the brakes off of the most of the swordsmen of the mist. And my guy is carrying on his legacy, and with Rock Lee, you know, they're carrying on Guy's dad's legacy. Is like an example of no matter if you don't know if you don't know ninjutsu or genjutsu, then you're still able to be a force to be reckoned with, like Tolkien said earlier. And I also like Jiraiya because Goofy Master, and he's a pretty fun teacher to Naruto. And he also had and he also written the novel that he also written the novels that Kakashi reads. If you pay attention to like the bell thing, the first time he does, I feel like yeah, I feel like Jiraiya is pretty cool in terms of techniques and what he can teach Naruto.
Justin, it is your turn. What do you think about any character's backstory or any character development that's not Naruto that you actually liked and appreciated in the series?
Man, y'all had some fucking answers here. Let me tell you, Jesus Christ! Like, I could tell where Red was gonna start fucking going. Trust me, because I mean I'm on the same boat with Hinata because oh my god, not Naruto that got a whole load of development. Like, I mean, especially like later on, but like especially part one. Yes, and it all started with that one episode. It's some that whole thing just flipped the switch in that woman. And then post tuning exam, because especially got into the tuning part, it was another slow burner for Hinata, but she slowly but surely started to come out of that shell that she kept herself in for a while now. And while this is a filler arc, I'm going back to that one hunt for that whatever fucking beetle is called, but she in secret was developing a new fucking technique to which she was even practicing it in the freaking Dead of Night in secret, to which she almost got caught, but she was able to keep her identity safe at the time. And later on towards the end of the arc, when she shows it off, like, Naruto is impressed. Everyone is impressed, but especially Naruto's impressed. But it's even if it is filler, that just shows some more growth, like for Hinata. She's making her own fucking techniques. She is starting to get better in combat, and I mean, like part two will especially probably have some parts to say about it. But like, she starts to get, just come into her own. She's getting better at things. Again, it takes a bit for her. It's like, especially in terms of the whole social battery thing. I mean, I can relate. But that was a domino that tipped to the Hinata we would know of today, and man, thank God it did, because jeez, talk about someone who freaking went from 0 and then slowly but surely, then later on to 50, it took a couple years, okay, 100, oh wait, no, she's going above. And also props to her English VA, Stephanie Shea. Amazing voice work on her half.
Alrighty, Kaneki, it is your turn. Do you have any memorable characters that you want to bring up in terms of their backstory, history, or anything they go through that's not Naruto that was interesting?
Well, I had another answer if Rock Lee was stolen, but unfortunately, that's also have to be discussed in part two. His name, the backstory I'm talking about, of course, is for Kakashi's backstory of how he become, sensei and everything. But like I said,
That's
we gotta wait
all.
part two for him.
That sucks because I know what you're talking about, and I would love to
Yep.
delve into it, but Kakashi's like a whole part two thing with his backstory.
That will
really,
That will
Oh,
definitely-
Christ alive, yes.
that will definitely be my answer as well for part two. Oh, can't wait to talk about that.
So much of the freaking crazy, unbelievably good shit just happens in part two, and it's like, must refrain.
we have a time limit. God damn it! But you know what? When we get there, we will get there. Believe me.
But
Alright.
yes, Kakashi is my answer.
But we're gonna ease into the final question. How would you rank each arc in Naruto Part 1 in your honest opinion? And the arcs are the Land of Waves arc, Chunin exams, the Konoha Crush arc, the Search for Tsunade, and the Sasuke Recovery or Sasuke Retrieval arc. List them from best to worst. And we're gonna go with Rat first.
I hate you. I hate.
I had to,
Always make me-
sorry.
Okay. But I'll be mostly short. I'm going from top to bottom here. I put the Chunin exams at the top just because there's so many good memories of like particular episodes. The exam they have to take and sneak around to get the answers, and then comes the fated 10 question where you must answer this question correctly, and then the twist behind that. You get the Forest of Death with the soccer scenes, which I've already mentioned, and the introduction of Orochimaru with the organ music. It's like it's in my head. You get the actual fights, which I've already fawned about, and then you get to the quote-unquote finals, and you get to Sasuke versus Gaara, and that moment before everything hits the fan, and Gaara sees his own blood. It's my blood. It just sticks out to me. There's so many unique moments in Chunin exams that are just so without compare. There's Konoha Crush afterwards, because then you have a little bit of unfinished business with Sasuke and Gaara, and then Naruto steps in and that fight goes off the rails. You have the third Hokage versus Orochimaru, and that fight goes off the rails, and all the little battles in between. It's just like it's the perfect complement to the Chunin exams. And then you get to Sasuke Recovery, where all those characters that just fought each other to the death now have to work together to fight this sound ninja threat, so enemies become friends, and it's a decent peak. It's also a decent conclusion to basic Naruto. Land of Waves is actually kind of down there. It's sort of the first major arc, so it kind of has to be. It feels like a precursor for events to come, but it's still a decent arc on its own. Haku and Zabuza make great villains, but they have an even bigger scumbag in Gato just sitting there than the way Zabuza dispatches him. I think Search for Tsunade is listed on here, and there's too many episodes that they could have done without. But on the other hand, you have a slug fighting a frog fighting a snake, so that's a decent endorsement all its own. It's just there isn't truly a lot I can think about compared to other arcs, so that's about where I would rank it. That's about where I would rank the Part 1 arcs. Chunin Exam, then Konoha Crush, then Sasuke Recovery, Land of Waves, and Search for Tsunade.
All right, so I'm going to do mine, and mine's might be really quick because I think it's very similar ranking. So Chunin Exams peak. This is where you get to see the fights at its fullest potential, where everyone's coming along, you know, it's full on, you know, tests of survival to get the certain rank. course, you see where significant character development is placed here with their trials and tribulations. This is where they introduce like a lot of new people in this tournament that will shape a good bulk of the franchise. You know, some for better or worse. So they really definitely did their best here, and I just think it's next level, 100%, really well done. I know we've seen tournament arcs before, but the way they did it here with their own different and unique taste on, you know, these villages, and not only that, but the conspiracy of what happens next is something that will stay with you as you watch this. This is where they really amp it up, so to speak. I think the reason why Konoha Crush is like second is because it's basically the conclusion of Chunin exams, except everything is now in this giant ass invasion. Orochimaru is like out in the open. You have the fights with not only the Hokage but everyone else. You get the conclusion fight with Sasuke and of course Gaara, where of course obviously in this instance you can say Sasuke loses, but then Naruto comes in, you have that giant fight with him and the big giant squirrel Shukaku that has to be fought with the counter, which is the summon frog. It's just absolutely batshit insane. I'm gonna go to what like Justin said earlier, where it's like if you want to see just a lot of high revelation stakes and big kaiju battle, you're gonna get it in this arc and then some. The only thing that would, you know, sort of diminish it a little bit is that it is like a very, very, very skirmish based chapter where it's like they're trying to conclude everything outside of Chunin exams. Next is Sasuke retrieval. The reason why it's placed here is because obviously you get not only Sasuke feeling that his abilities have been diminished in terms of this revenge arc with Itachi, but you also get, you know, him leaving the village, which is the reason for this mission. And then it's a lot of other enemies from Sound that come in to fight with very interesting life or death premises, which I enjoyed a lot. I thought it was fine for the most part for what it was, and culminating into the final battle at Valley of the End. Next up is Land of Waves. So ultimately this felt like a build-up arc, and it wasn't something that was particularly bad, but it felt like the payoff wasn't really until the end, which is where you get that sad, somber ending. But once again, it is a perfect sort of, I want to say, culmination of what good Naruto arcs tend to be, which is a lot of high stakes emotion and a lot of changing character development, and that invests you along the way. The story with Zabuza and Haku once again being a tragedy, so to speak, and you're gonna get a lot of that in the series so far. And I think last but not least is Search for Tsunade. Now, I don't remember. I'm gonna be truthfully honest. Like, I don't think this is the worst sort of anime thing in the world, but the only thing I really remember about this is when Tsunade was just beating the entire, I've watched it, but I just remember her beating the entire shit out of Orochimaru at one point with taijutsu, and that was like one of the crowning achievements. Not saying that Tsunade's character development is something to be overshadowed. I just think that in regards to a lot of like high tension, high drama, high action, it felt like it was just a little bit lacking in his you know, gusto and flair, and that's why I just don't remember it as much as everything else. Also, I stole the answer, goddamn. Sorry about that. But that's why I just don't remember it as much. But ultimately, like, you can find some good out of all of these arcs, just ranking it from what I feel is best and least memorable. So moving on to Kaneki. Kaneki, what do you think about this question of ranking the arcs of Naruto?
This is the second time my answer has been stolen, damn it.
Sorry about that.
That was my plan. Did you use the shining gun on my ass and knowing, hey, this guy is going to say Tsunade for as last?
Hey, I got my Mangekyo out, no problem.
Ren was
You-
looking at your answers. It was for the sake of the test.
Yeah.
He's fucking cheating. Actually, I think that was part of the Trinity exams, right? When they were all cheating and trying to succeed.
Yes, they were.
That was my favorite. I will put that as first in my top arc list. As for my favorite arc in Naruto Part 1, because there was a lot of emotions. The fact that they are determined. Well, first off, just alone that they determined to cheat just to pass for the next exam is pretty incredible, if you ask me. I like that first, and then the second arc I would put the prologue, the Land of Waves arc. You know, just get the slow build up before all the fucking hype shit goes crazy in that arc. With Naruto, Sakura, Sasuke, and Kakashi facing Zabuza. Build up is great. And then everything else I will put the Konoha Crush arc after that, and then the Sasuke recovery arc after that. And Tsunade, of course, it's the last one. I don't hate it. It's just it wasn't the oomph compared to the other arcs. Even the prologue arcs had more oomph than when they did the search for Tsunade. Although that's another thing I'll say later about Tsunade, but she definitely had character progression. Let me tell you.
So
And no, I'm not talking about her chest, you perverts.
I was, well, I shouldn't have said anything
Red?
because my brain was thinking that, but my mouth started
Here we
talking.
go.
Fuck.
God damn it.
Fucking stop him.
Sorry.
All y'all degenerates.
Oh, sorry.
You're the one to talk.
Um,
Okay, Lady Degenerate. So it is your turn on this. Where would you rank all of the arcs?
oh boy. I'm ready to be the only one with this setup. So and you know what? I'll stick by it. I just rewatched it. I'm super fresh on everything, start to finish. So everything's fresh in my mind. And for me, everybody's gonna say tuning exams is first. Nah. For me, Sasuke recovery arc is first. Because you already know these characters. You see these genin that have been tasked with pretty much an AS rank mission to go get Sasuke. They have very little time to prepare. Shikamaru has to do it off the cuff and just get whoever is around to come do this. And so you take these 12, 13, 14-year-olds and you're putting them fist to fist against these Sound Ninja 5 who are grown-ass adults, hand-picked, super psycho soldiers that Orochimaru has groomed and given ultimate power to. And, you know, everything's just against them. But yet, they each have to do their own battle. They each come out winning because it proves to them that their hard work and their dedication to their craft has outwit these fake, what I call fake powers that Orochimaru has just given them. That they were just given and they didn't earn. And every single episode of this arc is just good, in my opinion. You get to see characters that previously were just shit. I mean, you see Choji go from who before was pretty much a coward and wouldn't do anything unless he was bribed with food. You know, and you see him step up and defend Shikamaru, who is his best friend, and on behalf of the group takes on the very first enemy they encounter by himself. You get to see him use jutsus you hadn't before, ones that he's used but now with a twist. You get to see this amazing clan secret of his with the pills. Just things you would not expect out of Choji. He just by far gains so much respect in this fight for me. And you go from that one, and then you get the next one where you have Neji going against Kidomaru, and you get to see Neji grow as well and really put to work brains against this guy, and him defending his group, which he would not have done before. And then you move on and you see Kiba and Akamaru having to go against Takon and Ukon. And you get to see this amazing jutsu that they put together where they combine and become this massive white wolf against this really creepy guy that can attach to your body. And then, you know, you have, at this point, Shikamaru going against, I can't even remember her name. And he, again, Shikamaru is showing that brain outplays brawn. They didn't get to finish their individual battles, Kiba and Shikamaru, because now you have the Sand Ninja coming back, who were once the Leaf's enemies, and now they're friends and working and helping them. So you get to see them be on the good side. You get to see their new jutsus. You get to see Kankuro's new puppet help Kiba. You get to see Tamari's new summon help Shikamaru, and just pretty much bulldoze the whole frickin' forest in front of them. And then you get to see the best pair matchup you could imagine. I don't think anybody expected to see Gaara and Rock Lee working together against Kimimaru, who is no doubt like an amazing ninja under Orochimaru's wing. And I just think the whole arc is just amazing. There was not one episode I just did not enjoy. And then at the very end, you get the clash between Naruto and Sasuke. For me, I don't know how it cannot be on the top. I think it's amazing. And then I did put the Chunin exam second, because I do think that is good as well, just to me does not top the retrieval arc. I enjoyed the exam to see how they would cheat, if people knew the answers to the questions, how they cheated. It was great to see, you know, Naruto, even though he knew nothing and did not cheat. It's funny to see Ibiki's reaction when he realized that he just passed a student that not only did not cheat, but didn't know any of the answers. He just passed on pure guts, which is great. The Forest of Death was amazing. This gets to show the Genin just how rough the real world is when you have to fight to the death to continue on. And then you get, of course, the preliminary fights after that, which is good to see all these characters that you only see glimpses of. The other ninja from the Leaf and from the Sound and from the Sand. In their matches, all of them were good, of course. And then I kind of I couldn't decide which one was better, but I pretty much put together the Search for Tsunade and the Konoha Crush arc, because just for me, I was not a huge fan of the Konoha Crush arc. I think the best part of the whole thing was the fight between Orochimaru and Sarutobi. The other just yapping between some of the ninja, or like, I don't know how many episodes you see in a row of just a random guy in Kakashi popping up and smacking the shit out of Sand and Sound ninja, and I don't know how many episodes that went on for. And but yeah, you know, you have the fight with Naruto and the Toad versus Gaara and the Sand, which is good, but it just did not hit for me like the Chunin exams and the retrieval arc does. And as far as the Search for Tsunade, I really enjoyed it a lot. It gave you insight into this third Sannin that nobody knew. The viewers did not know who it was yet. You knew Jiraiya, you knew Orochimaru, and you know, okay, who is this third Sannin? So you hear all these stories from Jiraiya about this character, and you're going on your way to find her. And in that whole arc, you get Naruto learning the Rasengan, which in of itself is really great. Then you finally get to meet Tsunade. You get to learn her tragic backstory and what makes her who she is. And then you get that really epic fight that I enjoyed between all of them in that little field where you get to see Naruto, you know, realize just how shitty of a person Kabuto is and really stick it to him and use that Rasengan against him when Kabuto's throwing all this mud at him and calling him a shit ninja and that he's playing with adults. And I'm just like, oh yeah, this 13-year-old just kicked your ass. Like, be quiet. And you get to see Tsunade overcome her fear for Naruto, and Naruto gives her the strength to not be afraid. And the whole thing is just amazing. And as Ren said, you get to see Tsunade kicking the absolute shit out of Orochimaru, and I was like, yes, like, beat the fuck out of this guy. And it's just so fantastic, the whole thing. I enjoyed every bit of it. And then you finally get to see and hear her say, okay, I agree, I will become the next Hokage, which I'm like, yes, you know? The whole thing was just great. And then unfortunately, as much as I like it, the Land of Waves has to be last because even though it is itself a very good arc, when you have it up against the rest of them, it isn't going to be as good, as fantastic as it is. But I liked Zabuza, I liked Haku, I liked the family you meet while you were there. The whole story is good. It shows a lot of emotion. It gets you from the beginning of the show with it being the first arc. You get to learn about the characters and you get to feel for them and enjoy them. And overall, yeah, it is good, but compared to the rest of them, it has to be put last. So in order, I would say Sasuke Retrieval, then Chunin, then Search for Tsunade / Konoha Crush, and then Land of Waves after that.
Justin, it is your turn. How would you rank these arcs?
Well, so I will actually keep it a little simpler because well, my ass is getting pretty fucking hungry, so I'm gonna try and keep my reasons as simple as possible because I feel like some of us are also pretty fucking hungry here, and your boy really needs something in the system. But so I'm actually gonna go starting from last to first. You know, just I like to do that in general. I will say in terms for starting from last to first, I will also preface that I don't have vitriol towards any of these arcs. They're all good in their own way. Obviously, no story is perfect. I will put the prologue / Land of Waves arc in last in massive air quotes. It does suffer from first arc syndrome where you gotta set up everything. It's all got to be a slow burner. Nothing's as established yet. Characters aren't as developed. They are definitely in their early stages, and it's going to be a bit before any of them get any better for it. So it's gonna be some time, but it's like just stick around. They'll come into their own eventually. It's all just part of the process for when you're just very much starting bare bones in a world like this, where you're not going to know everything right off the bat. So putting that one at the quote unquote last spot right there, and then I am going to I'm still gonna put down here and for the reasons you think. So Search for Tsunade, I know it has its moments, but the thing is that more so the moments I remember from that are like, you know, more so the fights than anything in between. Like the fights like with the fucking, you know, 3-way kaiju battle and everything. Naruto learning the Rasengan, which fucking iconic, you can't forget about that. And just like, you know, a lot of the in between, so it's just like because before you really get to the good parts, there's a lot of fluff. There's just a lot of fluff in between there, and then after that, I actually will put down. So despite them being part of the same arc, I do put Konoha Crush in spot number 3, because while there is like, you know, the kaiju battles towards the end of that, and I fucking love like the kaiju battle between Naruto and Gaara, and everything so much to do with that, both with the fighting and from like, you know, Naruto showing Gaara that there's so much more than anything and just really kicking some fucking sense into him. But there is a lot of talking in between. There is a lot of chatting. And every time it and there are times where we'll flash to the forest where they're like, just jumping in between trees on like this episode's long chase, trying to chase down Tamari and Kankuro while they're freaking chasing Gaara away. It's like, oh lord. I'm like, when do I get to the fight with Naruto and Gaara? Because I had played that in Clash of Ninja 2 before actually seeing the arc in full. So part of me was trying to get to like, how did they do this in the show compared to the game where you couldn't really do as much because this was pre-arena fighter era where they were more limited in what they could do. And then after that, I will put Sasuke Recovery in 2. There, like being between the story stuff and the filler, there are some great character moments. There are some great fights. Like, once again, still gonna talk about the fight at the Valley of the End, as we've already mentioned so many times during this podcast already. So such an amazing way to cap off a story like that, and even all the other fights before then, just like some of those moments, like with, if I'm remembering, with Neji freaking adding 64 more fucking palms, or like, yeah, I can't believe I almost forgot about Choji popping out those fucking pills or whatever. I'm like, hold on, Choji's packing, he's fucking packing here. What's he doing? I legit thought he was just going to fucking say that shit, but I remember, like, hell, some of those fights I remember like saying before, like, Cartoon Network tried to cuck me out of freaking watching the rest of it. Too bad the internet exists. And I know I'm going to sound typical with putting tuning exams on top, but that's more so a personal thing because I have a lot of attachment to the tuning exams arc in general as a person, because it's really the art that I sort of got thrown into because of how TV scheduling works. So I'm just like, fuck it, why not? And it's where luck kept being a lady and giving me the episodes in order, giving me the fights in order. I was able to watch it. It was like my first real big Naruto arc. And I feel like that if I hadn't really been thrown into that, I wouldn't have been so wanting to keep going or how to go back and see what the earlier parts are like. I'm like, how did the Zabuza fight go in the anime? How did the Haka fight go in the anime? Again, like, what happened after the bell test? What happened before the bell test? So mainly because it's just like, this is what really besides Clash of Ninja 2 freaking threw me down the rabbit hole, like this long rabbit hole, and why I put tuning exams on top, because without it, I don't know if I would have really been put up to the whole challenge as much. But I don't know what that world is like, and quite frankly, I don't care. This is where we are now, so I will say I owe a lot to that arc, having really been the first one I really got to watch from start to finish in the full, which is why to me it is like, between those arcs, it is my top pick per se.
Nero, how about you? Where would you rank these arcs in particular?
I would say at first the Sasuke recovery arc, because it has like one of the best confrontations on Naruto and Sasuke. I feel everybody starts working together and dealing with this massive, crazy mission with really high stakes. So yeah, that is pretty interesting. I would like to put the Shippuden and Koda Crush arcs together, because like one big story and the ending is just like really, really fucking crazy, with the tail beast fight, the third versus Orochimaru, and Orochimaru losing the use of his arms because of the whole Reaper Death Seal. I would say the search for Tsunade was like, it was really interesting to see Naruto beat the brakes off of Kabuto and Tsunade overcoming her fear and becoming a much stronger person. And then I'd say Land of Waves. Land of Waves is like, it takes a while for everything to start up. Let's introduce you to the characters, introduce you to the world that hasn't really been fully developed yet. And it is a beginning of it kind of shows the tragedy of being like a ninja a little bit, and it's like it goes into how Naruto was at first, and then he over time he just grew and become a better person because of it. If prologue didn't happen, Naruto wouldn't even be the person that we know now.
All right, and I think we are pretty much wrapped on this podcast. So I'm probably gonna start doing the outros at this point. So Tolkien, where can we find you on social media?
You can find me on YouTube at Lady Tolkien and on Twitter at Lady Tolkien7.
Rat.
You can find me on X at the RadRad and on BSky at radrad.bsky.social. You can find my YouTube channel, RadRad's Rad Games, where I just wrapped up Final Fantasy IV Free Enterprise and am kind of sitting around sort of waiting to do my next project or single playthrough.
You can find me on X at Twitter, you know, call it whatever you want. You can find me there at Operative _. You can find me on YouTube, Renegade Operative, Twitch, Renegade _Operative. I put up a video talking about plot armor in the Resident Evil series. Interesting discussion, so go check that out. And I'll be putting up this podcast tomorrow. I will be reviewing the movie that everyone is dying and asking for me to see, and that is Deadpool and Wolverine. So that will probably be up either around Monday or Tuesday, so look forward to that. Next up is Nero. Where can we find you?
You can find me you can find me on Twitter, YouTube, and stuff at Kingdom Barrage. So yeah.
What about you, Justin?
Y'all can find me on Twitch and YouTube at Inferno Dragon 343, and on Twitter, where X will mark the spot where I'm gonna punch Elon's fucking face, at Inferno Dragon 3D.
Kaneki, where can we find you?
Well, as of right now, you can still follow me on Twitter, aka X, known as School World Order, where I recently posted just now that I did see Deadpool and Wolverine, and I gave it a 9 out of 10. The MCU actually hit a home run with this movie. And then you can follow me on YouTube under the same name. And I'm just going to continue labbing MK1, where if you log in right now, or as of this recording, they can get MK movie skin for Scorpion for free.
Tomorrow is going to be peak comedy gold because our fighting game podcast is tomorrow. So like I said, I'm gonna try to get these two up in an expedient amount of time, but if it's not up till Tuesday or Wednesday, that's probably why. We're gonna have some fun with some Mortal Kombat stuff, so look forward to that. Until then, there will be a part 2, and we will talk about Shippuden later in the future for this, as well as a secret anime announcement that will be coming sometime later tonight. So this is Renegade Operative signing off. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this discussion with us at the IES, and once again, take care of yourselves later.
Believe it.
Believe it. Or Dattebayo, as he says in Japanese.
Dattebayo, Brand, don't do this.
Did I mess it up? Oh.
Yes.
Oh well. Oh well. It happens. Everybody gets one. Everybody gets one. At least I didn't. At least it's not as bad as people saying Goku and Giku. That's
Whoa.
What?
that's awful. It's like,
Oh my god.
even Cat had a brain aneurysm there. That's funny.
Kind of.